Button.
I think Sarah Lemon's trying to sign on. She's having trouble on her end.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. And today is kind of just a check-in and probably even our last meeting of this statewide Tiger team. I think our goals for today are going to be to kind of talk about the when, where, and how of our regional areas and how we're going to handle those auditions and honor choirs this fall. Our goal should be to, ratify the handbook changes that we need to submit to the TNEA leadership for the all-state handbook. Those have been out since like September, and they kind of represent everything that was in the vote from caucus last year. And then talk about when we're going to make any announcements to our regions or statewide. So before we jump in with any region, just a couple of reminders that from a TMEA standpoint, the only thing that TMEA really is, talking about with all of this stuff is, um, making sure that all three regions are auditioning ninth and 10th graders together and 11th and 12th graders together, that we are going to be doing the online version of second tier testing this coming fall. Outside of that, there's and that each region must do sight reading as a part of regional audition before all state. But we're not dictating at all what, each region is going to do in terms of honor choir auditions or your own regional honor choirs. So really, the majority of the work that we've been doing for the last year has been preparing for how each region's going to handle everything. And I think we are stronger when we all work together. So our hope today is, maybe East has thought of something that Middle hasn't. And maybe Middle is try something that West want to go, and West is thinking about this that East might then want to adopt. So a big byproduct of having this meeting today is going to be strengthening how each of our regions work together. So, power. Well, Sarah, thank you for being here, but we understand you to prioritize your course. Um, so maybe we can start with Wes, Sarah. Wes Murphy, and Sarah might be jumping off early. Do you guys want to get started? And I think the goal of this group is going to be just to kind of talk about, where and when your regional auditions are going to be held. If you have an idea what audition material would
Hey,
be
Brian.
and
Hey,
where
Brian.
auditions would be.
Sorry to interrupt, Brian. When you move your mouth away from your computer, you start cutting out. So we heard half of what you said. So when you're facing it or whatever, it's catching your audio, and then half of it sounds like.
Is it better if I use that microphone?
You sounded good there.
Okay. Yeah, I switched away from my earphones, so maybe that's what it is.
Got it.
Okay. Well, it was a very long and inspirational diatribe, everyone. So if you would just feel as if the world has been lifted and there's no ice outside, just know that it was really something special. Um,
I feel it.
okay, I appreciate that. All right, so I think we'll start with West since we know that Sarah might have to jump off, especially. West, I think each region today should try to share where and when regional auditions will be held. If you have an idea of what audition repertoire would be for the two different cohorts of auditionees, and where and when the regional honor choirs will be held. So, West, what have you guys been working on? Where are you on all that?
Well, we are solid on the where. We're not really as solid on the when. This is largely due to the fact that our calendar meeting is not until later in the spring. But we have decided to go to a virtual audition. Well, let me tell you what we did. We had our regional business meeting yesterday, and we have amended our bylaws with a a 1 year amendment just for our executive board to be able to make changes to event scheduling and event auditioning, so that we do not have to because our bylaws have, and I'm not sure what you guys have in your bylaws, but our bylaws have rules on, what's involved in an All West audition, and those kinds of things. And so the board, along with a teacher advisory group, has leeway for the next year to adjust things, just to see, because we know that with big changes like this, that there are going to be hiccups along the way, and we didn't want to amend our bylaws permanently if we just had to amend them again next year. So. We've done that, and we feel like that's going to give us a little bit of freedom to change some things if we need to. But we are going to go to a virtual audition. We have not set in stone the when, but we do have venues for all of our um, honor choirs reserved. Um, so we will still have the northwest section at Freed Hardeman, the southwest section at Bellevue Baptist Church in Memphis. We are going to have to audition all of our students together, though. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a virtual audition. All ninth and 10th grade students from West Tennessee will audition in one, and then all 11th and 12th will audition together. And then once we get our all-state eligible kids from that master list, we can then separate those lists out so that we each can fill our regional choirs. And so that's kind of how we decided to do that. So that we are following the TMEA mandate that all West Tennessee 9th and 10th graders are auditioned together, all 11th and 12th graders are auditioned together. So the only thing that we don't really have nailed down exactly is the when. And we're just sort of tentative about that because we do have a meeting specifically to set the calendar in the spring, and we would just like to have more input from our membership before the executive board decides on a date. Also, I'm interested to see what Middle Tennessee and West Tennessee are doing, and that might help us make a decision there. And I don't know if JD or Sarah wants to add anything to that, but that's kind of where we are.
That sounds like a really awesome plan and a way to really you hear the tuba in the background. Yeah, sorry about that. I'll see if I can't stop that after I mute again. No, it's funny. It sounds like I've got good Charlie Brown Tiger team. Yeah. Like we've got some underscore music here. I think that's a huge way of West being able to keep your Northwest and Southwest honor choirs, but still deal with auditions the way that sounds like a really elegant way. Have you guys thought about an audition platform?
We have a member who has been for a couple of years working on a virtual audition platform. And so he is going to present that for us at our meeting in August. And he has shared it with me, and it looks really great. It's very user friendly. And so I'm really excited about that. So, and he assures us that we will be able to get what we need, for TMEA out of it, and then separate it so that we can get what we need for each region.
And are you guys going to do sight reading as a part of that virtual audition too, or is that going to be done at another time?
No, it'll be included in the virtual audition.
That's huge. That's huge, guys. Nice job. Um, have you thought about anything about audition rep? I don't think that has to be a decision made today for anyone, but has that discussion been happening as well?
Um, we would really like to continue to use our concert rep for auditions. We've always done that. We feel that it is the absolute best way for our students to be fully prepared for the regional event. Now, obviously, it's possible that that could present a little bit of a hiccup because Northwest and Southwest does have different rep. But at the end of the day, we're all musicians. We can all read music, and I think that it will work out So, uh, I think what will probably end up happening is, you know, half of our directors will judge the ninth and 10th grade, half of the directors will judge the 11th and 12th grade. Um, and we have much the same way that we have audition cuts for octet testing. We pretty much do the same thing with our regional rep. And so those will go out and everybody will get those and would it I think that it's going to work out that we can still use our concert rep. That is our goal.
Anything else from West before we move on to another region? I think that sounds awesome, guys.
Could we ask questions before we move on?
Great idea, Will.
You
I
can
was
ask me
wondering-
anything you want.
Yeah, Rachel, thank you. I was wondering how many judges are in like an audition room, for lack of a better word. We do our auditions in person, but like if you're doing things online, how many teachers will judge a single auditioner?
Um, when we have in-person auditions, Southwest has far more teachers than we do. I believe they usually have 5 judges in a room and they drop the high and the low.
Okay.
In Northwest, we don't have enough to do that, so we have 3 judges in a room and we just keep all 3 scores. But I think that with the virtual audition, we can do 5 in a room and drop the high and low.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Is there a volunteer from East or Middle who would like to go next?
I'll go. So for Middle Tennessee, we had a really good meeting at our mid-state event with all of our directors that helped us nail down a lot of different things. So for our schedule, we decided to go with a live audition since the all-state audition will be virtual. So we're doing that at the end of September. And then that gives them a month between their mid-state audition and their all-state recording window. And then we will have our mid-state event middle of February, the same time we normally have it. So the 16th and 17th of November, right before the all-state rosters are released. For repertoire, the membership kind of wanted to do something similar to what West Tennessee does. I'm a product of Northwest Tennessee myself. So going to use the audition repertoire or the concert repertoire that the clinician has chosen as part of the audition, in addition to a vocalese. So they'll do a vocalese for their voice part. They'll do, I think we decided on 2 selections from the clinician's rep, and then also sight reading. For the sight reading, we're going to keep our current standard is for our ninth or all of our students to do 4 measures that start and end on the tonic. We're going to use that for our 9th and 10th grade students, but then for 11th and 12th, we're going to lengthen the excerpt to 8 measures and then add a few new skills. We decided to model our mid-state event after the All-State Honor Choirs just to make it a little bit easier for us just to match that. So we will have a 9-10 SATB, an 11-12 SATB, and then a 9-12 treble choir and a 9-12 tenor bass choir. And what else was asked? Oh, we used to, up until this year, we went to 5 judges per room. We had 5 judges per room. We dropped the high and the low, but we need to add audition rooms with how the students will be separated. So we're actually going to go from 5 judges per room to 3 judges per room. And then we're also working towards updating our bylaws to match kind of what we're going to be doing in the next few years. And I think that's it. Spencer, is there anything I forgot or you want to add? He says no.
No, you covered just about everything. We're gonna do a modified version of that clinician rep this next school year, just because our timeline is a little bit off from what it would be in a normal school year. But yeah, just about what Garrett said.
Hey Garrett, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, what's up?
Um, your regional event, your mid-state event, are you still
Mhm.
doing that kind of the same time that you have done it in the past? That
Yes, that is our goal. The big thing right now is so we're coming up on a year where we are going to elect new board members for next year, and our board members are also the event chairs. So that means that, like our I'm currently the auditions chairperson. That doesn't mean that next year I will be the auditions chairperson. So our current mid-state event chairperson is seeking out venues and kind of trying to lay the groundwork because he knows that, we need to get the ball rolling. In the event that he is not reelected, that work will already be done for a new person, but we are scheduled to have all four groups. Um, at the same time, we have had it in the past, which is nice. So we are going to do our mid-state event before All-State because All-State will be in January.
okay, that's just one thing that we were kind of struggling with over here was, are we going to have to move our regional event up? Because I think, and JD and Sarah, if they wanted to add anything here, I think that we would like to leave it at the same time if we can, just because it's just it's easier for us to get clinicians for that time frame, and our venues that we have used for, especially in Southwest, they've been using Bellevue for a few years. It's probably easier to get that space. So just wanted to check with that.
Yeah,
Well, and I
that was a
kind of
big thing for
agree
our.
with that too, just because. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I kind of agree with that too, just because we're also used to that time frame that all of our normal things are kind of scheduled around that because we know that that's what's coming. So if we can keep it that way, I personally would prefer it, and I think a lot of the people in ours would.
Yeah, and what Spencer said, we did try to hold our date because most of the regions, like Rutherford County, Wilson County, Williamson County, have their own county honor choirs, and a lot of counties use the mid-state audition results to fill those groups. And our members just kind of wanted that. They thought that was best. It was important to them that we had mid-state before all-state, so the concession was having our auditions about a month earlier than normal.
I had one more question, Garrett, and you probably said this and I just missed it, but you said audition on clinician rep. Can you explain that again? I'm sorry.
Yes, so how West Tennessee does it now and how we're going to move starting in 2027 to 28 is the students will be given the music when they sign up to audition. We haven't worked out all the logistics of this, but they'll learn all of the music similar to how they do for Allstate, and then they'll be given a cut of the music of two of the songs to perform for the audition. So it'll be very similar to second tier, except they're probably going to have more time to prepare. Um, the benefit of this for what in our discussion was that you're getting students that reflect the repertoire that the conductor wants. So how you sing a Moses Hogan piece will not be how you sing a Henry Purcell piece. And so getting clinicians that kind of fit those parameters was important to our membership.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for middle? All right, East Tennessee, what's going on?
I guess that's me. So we had lively discussions at our general meeting in November at our All East event, and right now we have a couple groups working on different calendars and such, and I was able to present a preliminary calendar to council anyway, to the East Tennessee Vocal Association Council, and we're going to be working on that and present the final fleshed out calendar with little details that just apply to us, hopefully by the TMEA conference in April. And right now, what we are looking at, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to keep flipping back and forth between things because my internet, everything else is on, but my internet is out. So I'm doing everything on my phone. But the right now, our regional auditions are looking like September 12th, and those will be in person. we've always done 5 judges in a room, which sounds like a lot of the other areas have done that. That's why I was asking about judges in a room for West, because we're looking at redoing that as well, depending on how things go and what committees want. But that will be September. Our auditions will be September 12th. We usually have some type of screening for the All East event, and that's usually on election day. Right now, we still have that staying the course November the 3rd. However, that's going to be interesting with the second tier auditions happening before that. And that introduced a lot of concern for our membership because they didn't want those already high achieving students to be overburdened that much. So a lot of the membership is working on ways that we can accommodate that. Our actual All East event is scheduled for November 19th through the 21st, and that'll be at ETSU this coming year. We're trying to rotate through our areas in East Tennessee. It's been at the last 3 years, it's been at Lee University, and that's been great. Before that, it was at Maryville College, and so now we're finally moving back up to the upper region. And the only issue we've run into with planning thus far, by keeping our All East event the same weekend, is that ETSBOA moved their auditions to that weekend. That may affect a couple kids who do both band and choir, but Megan Christian and I are working on how to rectify that. As far as audition rep, we already have a room where students go to. Well, I'll back up. Right now we have 5 judges, and all students audition on a CPDL piece that has been rotating. So we have cycles. They come in 4-year cycles, and we have the 9th through 12th, 11th through 12th rep selected, and we have the 9th and 10th piece selected. And then there's an SATB piece, an SSA piece and a TTBB piece. Our choirs are pretty much going to remain the same. How we move around judges to make sure 9th and 10th are together and 10th or 11th and 12th are together is still being worked out by our auditions committee, which is chaired by Jason Whitson, who's the former ETVA president. I think I got it all. Did I leave anything out?
I don't think so. Are there any questions for Will or anyone in East Tennessee? Are there any questions from before we move on to kind of make things actionable here, from any one region to the others, kind of getting clarification or advice? Or are there any things that you feel like your region is still kind of up in the air on that you want to ask folks in the room about?
The thing I want to share, I think our team of people was struggling for a while because we didn't want it to feel like we were telling our members what we were going to do, because that can provide some tension. If you can get everyone that will be involved in a meeting, or as many people as possible, and get present opinions, we kind of did that with our calendar and with our repertoire and some of our other things. Spencer and I, we can both agree that that was the most productive meeting we've ever had. Of having people sharing ideas was super important, and they felt empowered to have their say. And it was super civil, which is not normal. So if you have a time where you can do that, I would definitely recommend that. It's probably hardest for West Tennessee because there's 2 groups, but.
I agree. I was at that meeting and it was really well done. TJ did a great job of monitoring that room and keeping it going. And you guys presented a beautiful palette of options for everyone, and everyone got to talk through it. And I feel like they kind of came out understanding and knowing what was going on. So I see President Denton has his hand up. What's going on?
Hey everyone, I sent you a message, but I'm gonna have to jump off. But I loved what Will said about talking with Megan. This first year in particular, as we move to this new calendar, there's probably going to be some times, some dates that overlap that are conflicted, and I love that they are working on that from the very beginning, trying to work out a way where students can attend the All East Choral event and still be at auditions for the instrumental event. And you know, I'm only president until May, and then I become past president. But my encouragement, first, I want to thank you for being here again and for all the work you've done. And it's obvious that I took notes. I'm old, so I still write things down. That all the associations, the regional associations, have done great work and have made plans, and so that's wonderful. My encouragement moving forward is that you talk with each other, your executive leadership and the executive leadership of the instrumental groups talk with each other, because not only auditions, but in some cases, performance or honor choirs are happening during the fall when marching band competitions are still going on. And if you can create a dialogue, it might be possible for directors in your region to just say, we're going to take this weekend off. This is not going to be a weekend we compete as a band. So we're going to open that weekend up for our choral students to be able to audition in their choral regions. And then vice versa. It might be where most of your events are later. I think this is traditionally, and I was in all East Choir for 2 years. I never made all state band. I will admit it. I was in all state choir for 2 years. It was two of the best years of my life. In my freshman year of college, I was a vocal major. You can't tell I yelled at bands for too long. But my suggestion there is that you continue this dialogue that Will and Megan have modeled for us, to make sure that that's happening moving forward, so that there are not those conflicts and those are not those hard feelings, and that we are working together as regional associations who are members of a larger association, TMEA. And that would be my encouragement on that. But I applaud your efforts. I took notes on every region. It sounds like all of you have great plans put together. My only question really would be to Rachel. And Rachel, you're always on top of things, so I don't really worry about you a lot. But August is a late date for setting your calendar relative to TMEA happening in January now. And my encouragement might be to see if your executive committee could meet earlier, or if you could have a special meeting to look at your calendar maybe prior to that, just so that you don't get behind the eight ball on some things that I heard in your discussion. But you guys are amazing. I applaud you. And like I said, I'm going to have to jump off in a minute, but thank you for letting me be a part of this. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate your work too.
Just to clarify, we approve the calendar at our fall meeting in August, but we have a meeting in the spring, and any director who wants can jump on that meeting. And that's just so we have, you know, they have the opportunity to send us their school calendars. You know, a lot of people haven't even gotten those yet. So that takes place like right at the beginning of May. And so our calendar is actually put together before the summer break. So
That's
everybody
perfect.
can view it and see it, and we just have to approve it in August when we have our meeting.
Absolutely. That's perfect. Thank you, Rachel.
Well, for the remainder of our meeting, and we need to get off so that Rachel can spend some time with that beautiful baby, not in front of the rest of us here. But for the remainder of our meeting here, I'd like to kind of go back and talk about how music distribution went this fall, talk about the sight reading standards that we discussed, and then kind of do a few things that are actionable and talk about timelines. So first, the music distribution this past fall, that was the first year we had done it that way. Any suggestions on things to improve for that, or did it go well? What's everyone's thoughts?
Hey Brian, the only thing that I've heard is that there was not a copy for directors, and so many directors are complaining because now they've got to buy 5 copies in order to have a copy for themselves if they're using something like JW Pepper. So I think that's something that we need to put into play.
That was a
So
concern
here's a
raised as well. Sorry to interrupt.
no, go ahead.
But that same concern was raised in the East as well.
So the reason we didn't do it this past year, and I'm bringing it up so that we can kind of problem solve it, is there's no way to know how many of those director folders to get until we know what kids have made it, because it might be that, school A only needs a director folder for SSAA, but school B needs a director folder for all 4 choirs next year. So without having to, waste money or things like that, what's a way to do that? Or is it better just to say, we'll provide music to the students? And I see Dustin's hand is raised. He made a suggestion a couple of weeks ago that we then just ask Pepper to create a catalog number for the Tennessee All-State TTBB Choir, so that once directors do know that they have students in All-State, they can just call Pepper and say, I'd like the All-State TTBB packet sent to me. That was an idea that Dustin had. Go ahead, Dustin. I know your hand's up.
Yes, that's what I was going to say, was that I found it kind of awkward that like I got all this music shipped to me directly from Pepper, and then I would call them and I would say, yes, I am the director at such and such high school. I would like to get a copy of the Tennessee SSA music, SATB music, TTB music. And the Pepper reps, they were like, what in the world are you talking about? And when you go to the Pepper website, there is a link for state festival lists and other festival lists. And if we could get Pepper to list it on there, and directors could just go online and order it digitally or something like that, that would streamline the process and make it so much quicker. I understand what you're saying about not knowing how many directors and who would need what. And that makes a lot of sense. But if we could just get Pepper to coordinate having that available and ready and organized, that would make things a whole lot easier.
Hey, can I jump back in again?
Mm-hmm.
I almost, I mean, we're still paying for it. The schools are still paying for it regardless. I don't see the issue with TMEA, just adding that extra, because the teacher's going to pay for it regardless. Now we're paying for it, if you get what I'm saying. We're having them go and pay TMEA for the students' copies, but then the directors got to turn around and buy it from JW Pepper. So if it could just be a one-stop shop, it would be wonderful.
Hey, Adrian, thank you for that. But going back to Dr. Russell's original point, how do we know how many to get, as far as, because we don't know how many directors to allocate that budget for, if that makes sense? I mean, are we supposed to assume that every director that's going to be participating in the auditions would get a folder? I think the reason why it was done this way was simply because we didn't know. We don't know how to plan for that. Whereas with the quota, we know that there's a set number of students that are coming from each regional, so we know exactly how to account for that. My second question to that is, while it's all great and to do all of those things with Pepper and getting a link for directors, which we certainly can do, my question is sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Russell, but repertoire that falls outside of what Pepper carries, through like Oxford University Press, or if there's compositions that Pepper doesn't offer, I don't know that there's a clean way of doing that either. So just kind of throwing that out.
Yeah, and there are pieces for next year that are with publishers that Pepper's not going to have. We're starting to see much more of that over. I mean, I've been doing All-State since 2016, I think, or something crazy like that. And it seems like since COVID, more clinicians are choosing music that's not just your standard octavo that you can get, from a thing, but it's self-published by the composer and things like that. So I agree with Dustin. We can get a JW Pepper number, but then directors will still have to go and find its the other things for the other thing through another vendor. And the other thing that I like to think of is there are a lot of directors that choose not to use JW Pepper for their music, vendor. And so I don't want for TMEA to say this is the only, or to seem like we're saying this is the only place you can get our music. That's why for the last many years I've just put the publisher and the publisher number on there, and then directors can get it from wherever. Rachel?
I think I can see this from both sides. What I will say is that the most difficult pieces to get sometimes if you just need one copy or, two copies, if you just have one kid in All-State, are the ones that are from published or from composers where you have to get it on their website. 9 times out of 10, when you're ordering from their website like that, you have to order, 5 copies or 10 copies. And so if there was just a way, I don't think it would be an issue as much if it were in a situation where if you were ordering, you couldn't just order one copy. So that is where a lot of the frustration comes in sometimes, I think, is, if you go on JW Pepper or a composer's website, if you have to order there, they don't want you ordering a single copy. And so I don't know if there's anything that we can do to sort of get around that. Here in West Tennessee, sometimes we have in the past called and spoken to composers, and they would make a special link for us or whatever so that we could order just the copies that we need. If I only had 3 kids auditioning for All West, I didn't need to order 10 copies of a piece, things like that. So it's just I think it's some things that it's like with everything new, there are always going to be hiccups and things that we do. Just some of these things need to be, if there's a way that they can be addressed.
Yeah.
Also, I have ordered All-State music many, many times from, and I think East Tennessee uses this company, The Music Source. And I will tell you that those people are absolutely wonderful. I know they might not have our All-State list this year because it came from Pepper, but those people are absolutely wonderful and are great at getting just whatever you need, however small or large amounts of it. They're just absolutely wonderful. I don't know who started using them and turned me on to them, but thank you. But I think it was East Tennessee.
And I can speak a little bit to that. I do not believe that the music source as it once existed is in the same or is in that same form. I think it's been bought by another company or something like that. We had some issues with them this year because we used to buy all of our All East music through them. We would send directors packets, much like what TMEA is doing for us now. That's just FYI.
Well, to kind of update everyone for next year, because we're talking about having auditions, I think West Tennessee was the earliest one at like the first week of September or so. I'm in the final process right now of kind of pre-vetting the rep that the 2027 All-State conductors have submitted. And then once we kind of agree on that, I'll submit that rep to the Tennessee TMEA Executive Committee for approval. And I fully suspect that Part Recordings, the company that makes our part recordings for second tier, will, have that music by the end of March this year, probably. And, then we'll have that music to JW Pepper, and we'll have it delivered to all the 3 regions, by the middle of August this fall, so that everyone will definitely have it ready. So that's cool. Yeah, Dustin's also talking about what Rachel was saying there about the minimum of 10. Before this year, TMEA worked it out with each publisher where they had that minimum copy requirement, and they created a special link for just TMEA. In one instance, I know it was only available for like a month or so, and it was a special link. I think that we didn't do it this past year because TMEA just bought all the music and we didn't have to worry about that minimum requirement. So that's the reason it didn't happen this past year. But the hope is for the fall to have all that music in everyone's hands by the middle of August, so that whenever your regional auditions would be, you should have them ready to distribute that same time. And students can start working on them as soon as they know who's eligible for All-State. Thing number 2 to talk about were the sight reading standards that we discussed last meeting. Any thoughts on that, or are we ready to kind of submit that to the TMEA Executive Committee as well as a part of the handbook changes?
For Middle Tennessee, we talked, like we presented that to our membership as well to just kind of give them an idea of what it was, and they really liked the idea of scaling it. So for the first year, like we could still use our current standards for our 9th and 10th grade students. The only thing that they would want, like our members, some of them wanted, was to still count the sight reading as part of the score, because their fear is that if it's not counting, the students aren't going to try, and you're not going to get really reliable data from any of that. But otherwise, they were a big proponent for it.
I do want to say there are some things in West Tennessee that we liked about the sight reading. Specifically, like Garrett said, that it is scaled. I do just want to reiterate that the biggest issue that we have over here with the sight reading is our very rural schools. Just as an example, I get students in the 11th grade that are very talented and become pretty good musicians, but they haven't been in a music class since they were in elementary school. And you really have a lot of that in rural schools. And I know that that's not just limited to West Tennessee. I just feel like we have fewer sort of metro areas over here. And so we have a lot more of our rural schools that are participating in our organization. And that's just, I don't know what there is to do about that. It's just a concern that I have, because once that scale gets to where we want it to be as a state association, it's going to be really difficult for somebody that has, a kid comes in their class and, they really want to participate and do these things, but it's impossible to get somebody to that skill level, from August to November. Right. And it's just a concern that we have. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, Rachel, I completely agree. And I know that problem you discussed there is going to be especially prevalent in rural areas. But yeah, just like as Adrian was saying, I mean, I teach in a bedroom community for Nashville, and we, I get kids that are coming in as sophomores and juniors and seniors that also haven't been in a music class since elementary school, and those recorder karate belts are getting pretty faded. So, like I get that for sure, and we see it all over the state. I remember when we first started talking about adding sight reading in Middle Tennessee in 2013, it was there was a couple of proponents that said, hey, I would have never made mid-state or all-state if there had been sight reading when I was in high school. And, look at, what it's done for that experience created my life's path. And I think what those people would all say now, because I've spoken to them, is that perhaps, but now there have been 10 years of students that are benefiting from having a more sequential music literacy philosophy in the area. And I think that evidence is borne out in the scores that we see now versus the scores that we saw 10 years ago. So my hope is that this will be a bit of the tail wagging the dog, a little bit of our schools will feel more pressure to create choir as a sequential part of a school day, if they know that there are things at stake from a larger standpoint outside of just their school or their district. And this will be a tacit statement as a state of what we think is important. And hopefully that'll be something that'll make those things that we're all experiencing a little bit less frequent down the road. So does everyone feel cool with the I'm thinking of here, the handbook adjustments, the adjustments to the Tennessee All-State Handbook, which again is just rewriting how we, made the vote at caucus last year, including the sight reading standards with those. Something to Mr. Chester, Mr. Noblin here. I think one thing I'd like out of this committee is for us to submit those to the TMEA leadership so that the All-State Handbook can be duly updated. When do you think those could be ratified by the TMEA leadership so that we can get those out there in front of our directors and say, here's the way it's going to be this fall for sure?
I think as soon as you guys send us the draft stuff to go into it, I mean, our next board meeting we just finished our January board meeting today. We meet again on February 22nd, I think. So if we can get them ahead of time, we could get it on the next approval and get it approved for the February meeting.
Well, one more thing to talk about then before we kind of discuss our last actionable thing is the idea of regional alternates and any sort of regional business that you'll have to handle. So something I thought about that I put in the last email is, does it make sense for your region to discuss how alternates will work? So I forget the exact number off the top of my head, but let's say 9-10 Sopranos get 17 students that are eligible for second tier. What do you guys think? Should Middle Tennessee then say that, well, yes, the SOP 17 will go to second tier, but if one of those 17 chooses All-State Orchestra over choir, do we bump up chair 18 to be eligible for second tier? Or do we limit it to those 17? Does that make sense? Like, who has an idea on what you think your region would want to do on that?
We haven't talked about that part of it, but my initial thought is the people that you're inviting that qualify initially. Right now, we have the students that qualify plus the 5 alternates per choir, so whatever that number is. And that's it. If some of them drop, people just get bumped up. But I think with the new audition, we're having a lot more students audition. And with how, like specifically for Middle Tennessee, with how we're allocating some of these numbers for ensembles, based on the past 3 years of audition numbers, if we were to do that, we're gonna there's potential for us inviting someone that has a score that isn't quite all-state caliber. And I mean, not that them learning the music and giving it their best shot isn't worth their time or beneficial, but I don't think you would also have to reallocate that music to that student, have them learn all the parts. That's just, I don't know that that's worth the hassle.
Sure. West or East, do you guys have thoughts on that?
I am a little bit confused. Are there not, under this new system, are there not going to be any alternates for All-State?
There will be alternates for All-State. I guess we're talking about alternates just for West, for those who are eligible for second tier. So again, like let's say, I forget the exact number, but soprano and alto from 9th grade, the top 17 scores are eligible for second tier. Now, they're not guaranteed a spot in All-State, right? Only the top seeded students from across the state from second tier would be eligible for that, who would actually go to All-State. But I guess it becomes, does West Tennessee then want to send chair number 18 into second tier? Or do we think that just cutting it off at number 17 is what we want to do? That's what Middle Tennessee is saying, right, Garrett? And I don't think that we have to do the same thing across the state. I think this is your region's quota, and you can handle it however you want to handle it. I just wanted to see if you guys have given that any thought, or if you have thoughts today, or you can think about it later and whatever.
I would want to come back to that after discussing it with people that are far more intelligent than I.
I could jump in for a second. We've had alternates for a while for just All West, like the actual choir in All West, and we didn't have them before. So when we added them, it ended up being like a win-win. I mean, some kids get called up like at roll call the first night, and they're ready because they auditioned and they learned all the music. And I think that for second tier, yes, you've got a lot of music to learn and whatever, but I think at the same time, and what's the worst thing that's going to happen? They can't learn the music well enough and they don't make it. Like to me, I would encourage. We've not had this discussion in West yet. We've had too many other things to figure out first, but I don't see the downside to at least providing a few alternates for each voice part in each sub 9, 10, 11, 12 grade, just so that there are the full allotments of students auditioning at the second tier level. I don't see the downside.
Has each region thought about what sort of governmental changes you're going to have to do to your own governing documents to implement these changes for this fall? I know West Tennessee, it seems like you've got a 1 year way to make that happen. And then what about East and Middle? Have you guys thought about that sort of stuff?
Middle Tennessee, if I can jump in, this is our time to also just re-up our bylaws in general. So we're having to basically clean house and rebuild ours. And so we're planning on a special vote to kind of do the first reading of the bylaws before Allstate, or at the Allstate event. I can't remember. And Garrett, is the first one gonna be at Allstate, or are we trying to do one before? TJ's also on here. Hi, TJ.
Hey,
Hey, DJ.
got power
Thanks for doing
again.
this.
Yay!
We had said we're going to go ahead and just do the first one at the Allstate,
That's what I thought. Yeah.
like, in the afternoon after rehearsals are over, and then we'll give a Zoom option for people that aren't there as like a first reading, and then doing the second reading for our May meeting.
And so we're taking kind of a tentative pause on the exact format that we're going to take in 27, 28 this next year, since we're kind of behind the curve. But we're going to be updating all the nomenclature for everything else. So we're kind of doing a full rewrite.
As far as East goes, the biggest hurdle that we'll have for next year will actually be the fact that we conflict with the ETSBOA auditions, because in order to participate in Allstate, a student must this is the words in our policy, they must successfully participate in All East. And we have policies in place for students with sporting conflicts if it is a playoff football game. Like, those policies have been written, as well as doctor's sick notes. We had to come up with something like that post-COVID. And so some of those things are being worked out, so that a student can successfully participate and then also audition. But we're not necessarily anticipating this being a problem in the future. It was just sort of we had to commit to this weekend with ETSU, which is why we have that conflict. The rest of the stuff won't require any constitutional or bylaw changes, but it will require some rewrites and rewording in policy, which we'll be presenting to membership on like May 2nd.
JD? Oh, I thought I saw your hand up, JD. Well, to close out the meeting, here's what I would suggest. So I will submit the Allstate handbook changes, along with the sight reading standards, to the TMEA leadership in the next week, because I've got precious little to do over the next few days since I'm not going to be going to school. And I will, hopefully we'll get those, by mid-February at their next meeting. And then by the end of February, then my hope would be to email this organization like a document that can then go out to your state, your regional directors that just say, here's what second tier is going to look like next year. Here's what the all-state handbook is going to look like next year, along with the sight reading standards. Kind of a state level document that says, here's what all state's going to look like next year. And then your region can send that out whenever you want. If you want to wait until April or May, or if you want to send it out with any sort of things that your region wants to do. But you decide on when it's going to be best for you to send that out. And then before the end of the semester, I think it sounds like it's all of our goals to kind of have all this sewn up for next year, which is huge. Am I forgetting anything?
Hey Brian, I have a question to ask you, and I don't know how this body feels about it, and it might not be something that we want to do. I don't know, and Adrian, I don't know. You could certainly chime in on this too. I wonder how much of once we get all this passed and put into the books and everything like that, Brian or Adrian, would either you guys, it can totally be Adrian or it can be Brian or a combination of the both of you, but I definitely would like some aspect of this to be reiterated at the Choral Caucus at TMEA. And I don't know if that's something that, the two of you guys can kind of discuss on who does it. It doesn't really matter. But I do think this is something that we definitely want to put on front and center at our caucus meeting, just because, I know we're already putting the information out there and every means possible, but I still think this would be great to have some type of a presentation of some kind, albeit however brief it needs to be for the Choral Caucus. So just something to put on the back of your guys' minds.
Yeah, it was definitely a plan on my agenda. I was going to get with Brian to see if we can do that again like we did last year.
Beautiful, beautiful, awesome.
Well, I think that's the plan, everyone. By the end of February, I'll have something that should be able to send out to everyone here, kind of outlining what it's going to look like from a state level, and then you all can send out regional level stuff to your directors whenever you think like you should. The very last thing I promise, I think it would be smart for the Tiger team to meet one more time in like March of 2027. We're not going to set the date right now, don't worry. But just to kind of get through the first year and then kind of look back and say, all right, well, this worked, this didn't. And just from a state level, kind of share what worked and what didn't, and talk about any changes that we need to make from a state level, or get wise from each other on regional things like that. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, and I'll probably follow up in November or December to set a date or something like that. But I think that would just be smart, going, finishing up a year of transition to keep things rolling for the next year. Anything else for the good of the group, everyone? I'll echo what Joel Denton said. Thank you so much for dedicating the last, seems like many, many years to making all of this good stuff happen. Our constituencies are the teachers, and then they serve our students. And the work that we're going to do here is going to really make a difference in student lives and experiences over the next many, many years. So good on you for spending a day with ice outside, making all this happen. All right, if there's nothing else, see ya.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Brian.
Stay warm, stay safe.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys. Good job.
Thank you.
Bye.